selection of bulls, but by nature, I'd like to cover off on a lot of the management stuff. That's obviously what we've got some experience in. Webinars are great ways to disseminate info, but really welcome anybody that's got questions to stick them up in the chat, and Hannah or Zoe can interrupt and ask them, because trying to make it a conversation makes it a lot more interesting and saves my voice from talking to my computer for 45 minutes. So we'll fire off, but please, if you've got any questions or you'd like to challenge something, just butt in and we can cover that off. So as I said, just want to talk about selecting, breeding and selling bulls that work. I thought to myself, what do I change given this is a group of seed stock producers versus commercial producers who I'm normally speaking with? And it dawned on me that not much is different really, except to recognize that seed stock producers are one of the top 3 information sources for commercial producers, and therefore play a really important role in education. So understanding the basics is ever so important. So a bit of an outline of what we'll cover this evening. Want to have a little bit of a chat about how bulls actually influence profitability in commercial herds, or in any herd for that matter. What you're selling when you sell a bull, or conversely, what you're buying when you buy one. The differences when selecting and managing seed stock size to what commercial producers have to deal with. Some information on why bulls break down, and we'll get into some disturbing little videos and photos just to wake everybody up. And then a little bit more about what the bull breeder can and should be doing pre-sale or pre-joining, and some tools to mitigate bull-related breakdowns. So I'll fire off. Some of this I will rattle through a little bit, just so we've got a little bit of time for questions, because as I said, there's a lot to be gained from questions from everyone. So when we're talking about the bull's impact on profitability in a herd, really important to understand that every cycle of calf age, by cycle I mean a 21-day estrus cycle. So every cycle of calf age is worth approximately $150. So the average calf, if we're comparing a calf born in the first cycle to the second cycle of a 6-week joining, there's $150 difference on average. So that's really quite significant commercially. That value is possibly a little bit higher with commodity prices where they are, but it gives you an idea that trying to get animals pregnant early in the joining period is really, really important. So there's a significant value, therefore, for the bull being able to achieve these high first cycle conception rates. And the target here is 70%. If we look at the cost of bull breakdown, it's very significant, but we need to be aware that not only is there a cost in the wastage of the bull, but there's also this huge cost in the lack of or lost fertility. So we know that each cycle is worth $150. So if these bulls are missing pregnancies, a lot of people get frustrated about the breakdown cost, but we have to be aware it's the missing pregnancies that are the real killer there. And the other comment about bulls is we need to be aware that they're sexual athletes. So it's their only job for the year, and they only have a very short period of time to do it. So we need to spend the year preparing these bulls to go out and achieve this workload. We can't let them sit on the couch for 9 months and then expect them to go out there and nail their job. So we must manage bulls with a year-round approach. Just thought it was worthwhile having a bit of a thought about what's changed over the last 20 to 30 years. Certainly, our understanding of beef production and the profit drivers has improved. And as a result of this, we've improved our pasture management, we've shortened joining periods, and we've increased joining ratios. And so this puts a lot more pressure on our bulls. And previously, where a bull actually had the opportunity to become injured within the joining period, they often would have enough time to recover from that injury and to actually obtain a satisfactory preg rate by the end of the joining period. Nowadays, with a 6-week joining, and a lot of our commercial guys are trying to get to a 3 or 4 week heifer joining, that puts a lot of pressure on these bulls. And if they break down in the start of the joining, they do not have enough time to recover. So, previously pregnancy rates would be okay, but if we looked at the conception pattern, we would see there was a delay. Nowadays, with shorter joinings, obviously we don't get the cost of that delay, but we actually end up with animals that are not pregnant. And so there's things we need to do to make sure we achieve those pregnancies. So when you're buying a bull, what is it that you're actually buying? Certainly, we believe it's an investment in genetics. So we're buying this bull, we appraise their genetic value, and we purchase them based on those, that giving us genetics that take our herd in the direction we want. We are buying that bull to produce calves so that we have offspring to sell. But what's most important is we're buying that bull as a delivery system. So without the ability to get calves, we achieve no genetic gain. And so I think that's really important. So are we buying the bull for genetics or fertility? Everybody regards the bull as a genetic investment, but it's really important to understand that we're buying this bull to produce calves, and we don't achieve any genetic gain if we don't create those calves. So sorry, apologies for the wordy slide here, but I thought what's different when we're talking about a seed stock sire? And as I said, not much really. We've got the same genetic package, but we need to be aware that they'll influence years of herd bulls and progeny to come. So having a good idea of what our genetic selection criteria is really, really important. And understanding that the direct influence of a seed stock bull on second generation progeny. So I'm assuming that we buy a seed stock bull, we breed bull calves, the females go into the herd and they have impact on the herd, obviously, but the bull calves are sold to commercial herds and used for a period of time. So they have a direct influence for 8 to 10 years from that one seed stock sire or AI sire that we use. And in fact, the indirect influence, i.e. third generation progeny, so daughters of that bull in commercial herds, will have impact on animals in the commercial industry for out to 15 to 20 years. So it's a huge cross section, or a huge amount of time that one selection of a bull or a generation of bulls is going to impact in the commercial game. So when we're looking at these sires, obviously we've got performance data. So we're using estimated breeding values to give us a snapshot of what genetic package that bull is offering and what performance data we're going to bring in. And that might be customized based on the female herd you've got, or it might be following an index that you're trying to optimize. So that's the number one reason. The other things that are really important are obviously pedigree. We're trying to manage inbreeding coefficients and take care of that on behalf of our commercial producers. So really important to manage that. Structural soundness. This clearly is really important. We've talked about the influence of bulls on the commercial industry. So we need to buy or be selecting for seed stock bulls that have the ability to breed sound bulls that go into commercial herds. It has an impact on the female herd within the seed stock group and the bulls that they breed for years to come. So the cost of a poorly structured bull is quite significant in bull wastage pre-sale, but also bull breakdown in the commercial herd. So really important. We've got phenotype. I've got in brackets there, is this more important than herd bulls? Ultimately, again, it is, because we're using this to create bulls that go out into the herd. So different people will debate about the value of phenotype in a commodity production system. But at the end of the day, these seed stock selection decisions are driving the quality of bulls that are then replicating in the commercial industry. So really important. And same concept with temperament. Temperament's a really important trait, and it starts with these seed stock selection decisions. So these are really important, and they are driving what breeders in the commercial industry can do. Obviously, then we've got particular genetic traits or genetic disease status that are relevant to each breed that we might be chasing. That'll impact which bull we select. And obviously what will sell. So what is favourable or palatable in the commercial industry? We need to understand that as a bull breeder, you must be selecting for bulls that you're confident you can sell. And so whatever is relevant for the commercial producers or your client base is demanding is really important to be selecting that in the sires. I've then got a comment here about the perceived, or in reality, real requirement for sires to present well. And the fact that this is most certainly associated with an increased risk of breakdown. So we all love to be looking at big, healthy bulls and understanding that has a negative association with bull longevity is important. So this is a tricky interface to manage, because whether it's other seed stock producers or whether it's potential commercial clients, they all want to be impressed by animals that they're looking at. And so And so that's something we need to manage. But look, you know, getting these bulls to a point where we can demonstrate their phenotype, record it, but then managing them in a way to get calves and have longevity is really important. And so we still must manage them so we can achieve calf production. And that requires education of the industry. Clients are typically quoting that they're not after heavy bulls. However, there's been multiple analyses done of sale groups across many breeds demonstrating that one of the highest correlated traits with sale price is actually sale day weight, which is unfortunately a very irrelevant trait when it comes to the genetic package that people are investing in. But obviously, that's a common understanding in the industry, and we need to have some education around that. I thought just a little bit more about the seed stock commercial interface. So really important role, understanding that you are the primary disseminator of genetics. So you're not only selecting the genetic direction of your herd, but you're setting that for other herds, and the decisions you make will control the rate of genetic gain. So it's a really important role, and one to be taken seriously. Top 3 source of information. So there's been a lot of surveys that look at where commercial producers get their information from, and seed stock producers are at the top of that list, along with their neighbours and their stock and station agents. So vets unfortunately come in pretty low on the list, and I think it's important to understand that you are an information source and being educated yourself, basing it on data and having professionals that you can correspond with to keep up to date, really important. And as I said, massive opportunity to educate. So just before we get into some other stuff, there was a question came through in the pre-registration stuff. And the question was, in selecting strongly for bulls with high calving ease, are you leaving the progeny open to calving difficulties in the future? And then anecdotally, Angus calves seem much smaller than shorthorn calves. Why is this? Now, I've got a few answers here. If they flash up, which they don't look like they want to. We're about to fly half a dozen slides in front, I suspect, because I've hit the button a few times. There we go. So my first answer to this is that we must understand, trust, and embrace the use of EBVs, to be honest with you. So at the end of the day, no, the selection for high calving ease is not associated with poor calving outcomes into the future. The anecdote there that I think is being alluded to is that, particularly in the Angus breed, when low birth weight was chased without understanding the importance of balancing EBVs, i.e. a single trait selection, we can select for animals that are low for birth weight. And consequently, a lot of those animals were tagged as heifer bulls. And what that meant was that they were low birth weight, low growth, low mature weight. So we were effectively selecting for lower growth animals. Yes, it gave us easy calving outcomes, but we did end up with these smaller heifers. Now, as they went into the herd, we reduced the size of their pelvic diameter. Now, we can obviously look at pelvic diameter as a trait separate to that of calving ease or birth weight. But what I would say is it's just important that we use a balanced selection. And so understanding or seeking assistance on understanding the correlations between traits and developing an appropriate index selection is really important. So if we select for animals that are low for birth weight but high for growth, we absolutely do not create a situation where we have ongoing calving ease issues into the future. And we understand, I mean, again, it just comes down to people's faith in EBVs. But if we believe in EBVs and if we put in accurate information, then we can identify these correlations between traits and we can breed animals that are superior genetically. I mean, to have animals that are low for birth and high for growth is a huge advantage. So my answer to that is absolutely not. If we went single trait selection for calving ease and nothing else, we could end up in a problem. But if we are using a balanced selection tool, then we'll be absolutely fine. Now, I've got a little example here. This is just something I pulled up yesterday. It's a Simmental bull, unnamed, obviously, but just as a bit of an idea, I'll I'll use my pointer here. I'm not sure if you can see it, but obviously we've got the EBV of the bull in question in this row here. Then down below we've got the breed average EBVs for the 2020 calf drop. Now, if we have a look at it, this bull's obviously higher calving ease than average. He's obviously lower birth weight at minus 1.6 to 0.6 average. If we look at his 400-day weight, he's plus 40. So he's actually higher than breed average, despite being so much lower at birth. And although he is higher at 400-day weight, he's still actually more moderate as a with his mature cow weight. So if we were purely selecting for animals that were on birth weight alone, and we were ending up with low growth rates and very low mature weights, then we could end up in that problem. But having a balanced selection process, and that's what an index will help you do, will certainly prevent that issue. Wire Angus calves, small and short on calves, because credit to them, the Angus Breed Society have put a lot of selection pressure on that trait, and they've promoted their calving ease ability, and over a period of time they have reduced the average. Well, it'd be good data to pull up actually, but they've reduced the average birth weight quite significantly. So if we have a bit of a chat about bull fertility now, unless we've got any questions, Zoe and Hannah.
No questions yet, Shane.
That's good. That's good. People are either entertained or bored. So we'll push on. Components of bull fertility, we call them the 4 S's. So we've got the structural soundness of the bull. We've got the semen quality and quantity. By semen quality, we are referring to morphology, so how normal those sperm are. We've got the serving ability of the bull, and then we've got sexually transmitted diseases. So they're the 4 components. And obviously, we're missing one major point here, which is management. How we manage that bull through the year, pre-joining, during joining, post-joining. So we'll cover off on that. So the areas of bull management, I stepped into that. Obviously, the other bit I forgot is purchasing the new bull. So we like to break it into those 4 categories: purchasing your bull, what you do pre-joining, what you do during the joining period, and what you do following joining to prepare them for the next year. So I thought I'd just cover off a little bit quickly, so we get on some interesting stuff. But what's involved in a bull breeding soundness examination? So it's an independent test that should occur annually, assessing those 4 key components that we've touched on. Obviously, there's an element of this that should occur prior to selling of a bull, and then obviously an annual check prior to the use of the bull within the joining period that can happen on farm. So pre-sale, we've got prevention of disease. That's the first and most basic. So we've got the vaccinations we should be covering: 7-in-1, which is your 5 clostridial bugs, and leptospirosis. We've got Vibravax, which is essential. It's probably one of the true STDs of bulls and can be prevented well with the vaccine, highly effective. We've got Pestigard as an option. We've got 3-day sickness as an option. We've got tick fever as an option, depending on what environment we're trying to manage these bulls in. On pestivirus, we want to confirm that all bulls are not PIs. So that's persistently infected animals or carriers of the virus. So one thing we'll do pre-sale, which is really important, is to confirm that the bulls we're going to sell are not carriers, because they will do harm out in herds. And then we've got parasite control, which we won't cover today, but ultimately in line with what they're doing on the property. So during that pre-sale check, we will look at the penis. We're assessing it for how normal its anatomy is and the absence of any injuries. Some of the common conditions we're picking up are penile warts, which is papillomavirus, persistent frenulums, which I've got a photo of, balanoposthitis, which is the technical name for what is otherwise a shaft infection or an ulcer. So again, I've got some photos. We'll talk a bit about that. Structural assessment. This is from a fertility perspective, not necessarily from a genetic perspective. So we try to stay out of genetic data collection on structural soundness. We're just looking at them from a fertility point of view, trying to preempt the bulls that are going to fall apart in herds and take them out of the pre-sale stage. So we're looking at the claw set. We're looking at the past and angles. we're looking at hind leg conformation from a hind view and a side view, and then obviously making an assessment, depending what people are trying to advertise, make an assessment of the muscle score phenotype and take out any poor temperament animals. When it comes to semen assessment, we want to palpate the testicles. So we're looking at the scrotal circumference as a physical, not an EBV. This is a predictor of semen production levels. There was a question which we'll cover at the end about scrotal circumference and its influence on fertility, so we can have a chat about that. It gives us an estimation of how normal. Well, we need to assess how normal their anatomy is, but it gives us an estimation of their storage capacity and the testicular tone. It gives us an idea of testicular health. We can then do a crash side semen examination where we look at the percentage of the sperm that are motile, which progressive motility is how many are alive and swimming in a forwards direction. And then we can make an estimation of morphology. Now, we can't do morphology adequately crash side, but we can pick up obvious defects, which gives us an idea of what's going on. And then we can send it away to a reference lab to have the percentage normal morphology counted for that bull. So that's how we look at the semen. A couple of pictures now just to break it up. This is a fairly normal penis. So when we're having a look at them, we will, using a swab and gloves, obviously pull the penis out by the tip, inspect the tip to make sure there's no trauma or warts. And we want to pull it right out to examine the PP junction. So this is the prepuce part of the penis, penile shaft here. This is the PP junction, which is simply where this loose, slinky part of the prepuce attaches to the penile shaft. And then obviously we call this the penile tip or glans penis. This is an example of a persistent frenulum. So it's where you have a permanent adhesion or attachment between the prepuce and the penile tip or shaft. We can repair them on site, put some local in and cut them back with scissors, and we give them a grade out of 5. What's important to know about persistent frenulums is that they are heritable. And so when it's identified pre-sale that a bull has this condition, they're fine to go into the commercial production chain, but ideally these are not used in the seed stock system. We do not want to have bulls produced out of bulls with persistent frenulums. Penile warts, these are some pretty tame ones. That's one right on the penile tip. This was one on the glans penis. They can get to be as big as your fist. They are more common in our high libido bulls, secondary to some homosexual behaviour. And we see spikes in the incidence of penile and preputial warts when feed becomes limiting. So if bulls are getting hungry, there will be a significant spike in homosexual activity and obviously the occurrence of these warts. Some of the structural things. So we like to get out in front of these bulls. We like to have them on concrete so that we can get a good look at them. It's obviously, this year's been pretty challenging. A lot of yards that don't have concrete. There's been a lot of mud, pretty hard to examine bulls adequately, but that's how we'd like to do it. This is an example of claw set, and you can see the guide across the bottom here. The middle 5 score being ideal, and then increase in scissoring as you go up towards 6, 7, 8, 9. And then you get these open claws at lower scores, which are much less common. So typically we're looking at bulls in the 5 to 7 range pre-sale. This animal here is obviously pushing a 7 for claw set. This is an example of a interdigital corn. We call them corns anecdotally, or an interdigital keratoma. There is a genetic link described in them. However, we also see these. We see them at a higher risk with bulls with poor claw set. We see them secondary to instances of foot rot infections in bulls, but they're a little bit different. You just get scar tissue there. There are other bulls that will be well-footed where these appear with no apparent predisposition, and so there is a genetic relationship there as well. These are vertical cracks. Horizontal cracks are where we have an abscess blowout or a defect due to nutritional stress or something, and they grow down the claw in a horizontal direction. But these vertical cracks particularly if they involve the coronet, are quite debilitating. Links with laminitis here, particularly in drought years where there's grain or high carbohydrate feeding going on. Also suspicion around a genetic relationship. So they're all traits that we try to take out. Serving ability testing. It's the only test available to confirm that the bull can serve a female, which is the job he was brought to do. So we've got a couple of options. We can do this on synchronized females or on restrained females. Allows us to assess the penile anatomy and erectile function, which is something we can't do in the crush or under an electrode probe. Very educational for younger bulls, but typically we don't cull young bulls with this issue. It's more an issue we identify in our experienced bulls. Again, like any part of a bull test, it gives us an appreciation of the bull soundness at that point in time, and that can obviously change. But it is essential for mature bulls due to the incidence of acquired conditions throughout their working life. So most of the issues that are acquired during the joining period are serving related. Most of the issues that are acquired during the rest period or the bull paddock are typically lameness and things like that. So they're a lot easier to pick up. But at the end of a joining period, it's identifying which bulls have got serving issues. We can also make an assessment of their libido or proficiency at this point, and that will influence our the mating potential we'll assign to these bulls. It is a good opportunity for education here. Even on some of our most skilled operations, they see a lot of benefit in educating on-farm staff annually at bull test about the behaviours of bulls at work. So I don't think this ever becomes obsolete, really. Little bit of information on why bulls fail and therefore what we should test for. Important to understand that the number of unsound bulls increases with age. That's a really basic statement, but I think important. The average working life of bulls has been estimated at 2.8 seasons, which is pretty underwhelming. I mean, they're quite an investment in genetics, and to think that we're getting on average less than 3 seasons out of these bulls means that there's a lot of room for improvement at that seed stock to commercial interface. We lack good data on this, as do we lack good data on a lot of semen testing work in Southern Australia. But it's challenging data to get because you need large contemporary groups so that you can control some of the variables that are occurring around the edges. But there's one study that's reasonably old now, which found that in a sniff over 2,000 bulls over 3 years of age, that 25% of these bulls were unsound for breeding, of which 55%, so that's 55% of the 25% unsound bulls, 55% had locomotion problems, so that's lameness. 25% had penile problems, 13% were taken out for low libido, and 8% had testicular issues and or poor sperm. So important to note that 8% includes bulls that were taken out on a testicular palpation as well as bulls that were taken out with a sperm or semen test. So one way to summarise this is to say that 90% of the issues are related to the bull's ability to seek and serve the cows. And so that's why we see the serving ability test as a really important part of a mature bull assessment, because these issues we want to take out, start with the big fish ultimately, and being able to assess the bull's ability to seek and serve will give us a really good idea on their soundness. A few more photos. On the left here, we've got a penile swelling. Now, a lot of people will call this a broken penis or suspect that it's a penile hematoma. That's not what it is. The penile hematomas are typically a swelling, sometimes similar size, but often larger, that is directly above the neck of the scrotum. So you'll typically only see them from behind. What this is a preputial tear and abscess. And it's a really common sequelae or outcome of the balanoposteitis we were talking about at the beginning. So these bulls enter herds. They are young and enthusiastic. They lack immunity because they haven't been exposed to these herds. And they go out and they become exposed to the pathogens or the bugs that are contained within that female group. Now, that's not to say that one herd of cows is infected versus another herd. All these herds have their own group of pathogens. Some are more sinister than others, but it's about what level of immunity these bulls have. Now, if they have no immunity and they go out to work and it's in the joining, cows are cycling and there's a lot of work to do and they're high libido, they will work, they'll create some abrasion on their penis. These bugs will create some inflammation. If they're high libido, they'll continue to work and they'll develop infections and ulcers. And at some point, if they continue working past that, they'll tear their prepuce due to pressure, because the prepuce is where that inflammatory fluid will build up. So it is without a doubt the most common issue we have with our first season bulls, and contributes to why there is a 40% breakdown in first season bulls. So really important condition and can be managed reasonably well through a few things. The most important is exposure of bulls to females on farm prior to the high workload of the joining period. So getting these bulls a couple of months ahead of schedule, running them with some culls, getting them some sexual exposure at a time when their workload is low is really important. Use of IBR or herpes vaccine is a potential contributor. We need some more work in that space, but herpes is obviously a bug that is typically involved. But in the absence of knowing what pathogens you've got, natural exposure and followed by rest prior to the joining period it works really well for a lot of our clients. Got some foot infections here. This is a classic interdigital dermatitis or benign foot rot in an animal. You get a lot of swelling in that pastern region through here. The claws are typically sort of distracted apart. They respond well to antibiotics. This is an example of a toe abscess in a bull. Over here, we've got an animal with a stifle injury. So they're carrying that back leg. A lot easier to appreciate on video. This is just some images of that balanitis. So I'll typically start as a very mild reddening to the shaft. And then at some point, if they keep working, you'll get a balanitis where you've got some ulceration, and obviously a little bit of pus as the body's throwing inflammatory cells at it. Then if that prepuce swells, this loose slinky part of the prepuce, it will swell with the inflammatory fluid and often get a tear. Now that's actually a healing tear, but you'll get a tear there, and then that will become abscessed, and they will look exactly like this animal here. Here's another example. So this animal has worked, torn his prepuce and prolapsed. We've then sutured it, cleaned it up, medicated him, put it back in with a purse string suture to let it to heal. They have a reasonable prognosis. They probably have if identified early, medicated, a lot of these preputial injuries would have a 50, maybe 60% prognosis of return. Some of them have some ongoing issues, such as scar tissue and whatnot. But a lot of people see this bull in the paddock, throw their arms in the air in exasperation and say the bull's busted. And this is typically happening 10 days into their first joining. So it can be very frustrating. But it's important to educate them. This is the most common call a lot of our seed stock producers get, is that the bull's busted. I'm going to have to cull him. I need a replacement bull. Or more commonly, the call is, there's something wrong with your bull. Send me another one. So educating them to understand. I liken this condition to buying a car, driving it out of the sales room, hitting a kangaroo. You don't ring the dealer up and say, "Hey, I just drove your car into a kangaroo. I'd like a new one." You ring your insurance company and you get it repaired. So I think that people just need to take responsibility and understand there are things they can do to prevent this. Important to understand that bulls will have normal preputial eversion as well. So some hanging of the prepuce is normal, but when they're swollen or torn or abscessed in the region between the sheath and the scrotum, that's important to keep an eye on. Corkscrew penis or premature spiral deviations, most prevalent in bulls at a median age of 3, typically secondary to penile injuries, in particular those balanoposthitis conditions we've been talking about. I've got a little video here which will just demonstrate what they look like. This obviously cow in a restrained serving ability test. So if we have a look back here, we can see that he's got an erection, but his penis, instead of staying straight, is corkscrewing, as per the description at the end, and prevents him from gaining intromission of the female. So little close to dinner time for those videos, but a good example. Really important comment here. Most of the sub or infertility problems we investigate involve new bulls in a single side joining situation. So getting people to understand that single side mating is very high risk is important. And multi-side joining is a great way to ensure that we get pregnancies and to reduce some of this negative correspondence that goes on between seed stock and commercial producers, and between seed stock and seed stock producers. And I think that's important. As I said, I thought about it at the beginning. A lot of the frustrations we have is also seed stock producers that buy bulls, typically a higher value investment in genetics. And if those bulls break down, then that's just as frustrating, if not more, given the stakes are higher. So what are some of the strategies we can utilize to mitigate risk? We understand that by having shorter joinings, we increase the risk profile. So it's our responsibility to find ways to reduce that. First is obviously a pre-sale and pre-breeding bull breeding soundness examination. Having an induction protocol for our new bulls, which includes sexual exposure prior to the breeding period. Pushing multi-side joining wherever possible, or if not possible, then rotation of single size each cycle is really important. So for a lot of you as seed stock producers, you will need / want to understand who is siring what calves. A lot of our seed stock producers now are embracing multi-side joining because of the ability to genomically test the offspring and have all of that information anyway. But certainly in your commercial producers, there are very few good reasons to avoid multi-side joining. Managing bull mating potential so that we are using these bulls accordingly per their fertility status is important. We are big advocates of mixing age groups and dominant structures, and importantly, the bull rating. So when we rate these bulls at a bull test, we give them an A, B, C, or cull status, and then a mating potential for a 6-week joining. And the design of that is to create a situation where people understand the importance of mixing high and low risk bulls. So for every C bull in a mob, we need an A bull to reduce the risk. What we don't want to do is have 2 A bulls in one mob and 2 C bulls in another, get one really good outcome over here and get a poor outcome over there. That's a bad use of the information we've collected. Understanding the impact of paddock size, topography, and location on the bull's ability to cover females. Again, simply using high-risk bulls in low-risk paddocks and vice versa. High-risk bulls being those that are identified at bull test, or any of our virgins. And virgin incorporates both yearlings and 18-month-olds and 2-year-olds. They are all at a pretty equal risk of a lot of the issues we see in virgin bulls. And then there's some importance of observation frequency. So how often should people be observing these bulls? Given 70% of the pregnancies are achieved in the first 3 weeks, all things going well, important that during that first 3 weeks, we have the observations up, particularly on new bulls. So we want to be looking at those, if not daily, 3 times a week. Older bulls, we can afford to check sort of 2 to 3 times a week. By the time we get to the 4th week of joining, we can all let out a sigh of relief and reduce these observations. What does observing a bull involve? Obviously, we don't want to see a bull like the guy on the bottom over here. He's taking it pretty easy. That poor fella actually had a spinal injury. So as humorous as he looks, he was unable to use the back end. But also the bull in the photo on top, I think it's important that understanding mounting behaviours, we like to see bulls that are working, and people are often concerned by bulls that are not working, but that's not always true. So bulls with a balanitis will chase females a lot. However, they will mount them and not serve. And so I've got a couple of videos of that. But the bull that's sitting under the tree has possibly worked quite well, and that's not always a good indicator of whether they're working. You've got to get out there very early in the morning to observe that. But just a comment to say that the bulls that are really doing a lot of mounting and not serving or not thrusting adequately at the end, they're the ones we should be worried about, not the bulls that are taking it easy, providing they don't have lameness or whatever else. So in the paddock and alive is important. Sounds a bit obvious, but I've got many examples of where bulls didn't work very well in a mob because they didn't stay there. Lameness is obviously the easiest to appreciate, but important. Preputial or penile swelling, we've spoken about that. Mounting behaviours, libido. So, again, is there too much riding or too little riding? Keeping an eye on bull interaction. So if we've got our bull ratios high, we possibly want to take the opportunity to reduce that in the 4th week when the workload is reducing. Weight loss is obviously normal in bulls. We just don't want to have excessive weight loss, which could be suggestive of an infection somewhere, or a bull with a penile injury that's doing a lot of mounting, a lot of physical work, but not actually serving that much. And our best producers, or our most skilled producers, most certainly use estrus activity as a bit of a gauge for how the joining's going. So a couple of videos here. We got any questions to butt in with, or we keep rolling?
Nothing yet. So
no worries. Through. Yep, no, it sounds good. So I've got a video here, which will go into it. So this is demonstrating some what we call the Fleming response. So he's trying to detect whether this female's in estrus. He's going to go to mount the female. You can see he's got an erection there. His mate comes through. He's got a little less foreplay. So that female is standing and that bull is mounting. However, there's no evidence of a thrust there. So we've got a couple of cows in the foreground, obviously, but we can see there that there's no thrust. So it's important to appreciate. A lot of people, believe it or not, a lot of people will believe that bull is serving that cow, for instance, but it's important to understand that that's mounting behavior and not serving. So that is not a successful mount. However, this is a good example of a successful mount. So till you get that thrust at the end, and there's another one coming here on the other side of the video. So they're searching and then thrust and serve. So important, as basic as it seems, really important to appreciate that without that final thrust, they are not serving. And so that's what we're looking at when we're trying to observe our bulls. Couple of summary points there. So what do we need to do during the joining period? Regularly observe the bulls, monitor female cyclicity as a measure of that outcome or the joining success. We should be trying to multi-side join or rotate bulls if we can't. Most of the issues we find are in single-side matings. So we can confirm their soundness with testing, but we can't prevent breakdown. So observing them or multi-side joining them, so they're covering themselves if we have a short of time to observe, is really important. Trying to join our high-risk bulls in more accessible areas with closer and more frequent observations is important. And just appreciate that most of the injuries are acquired and they're acquired during the joining period. So this is when we need to be hands-on. Just a bit of an example here to ram home my multi-side joining point, which I typically upset people a little bit, but it is really important. I mean, if there was one thing I had people do, it would be multi-side join. I think it's even more important than testing of bulls in a herd scenario anyway. So if we imagine we've got 80 cows and 2 bulls and we want to get a 6-week joining, one bull's reproductively sound and stays fit through the joining, another bull is infertile for whatever reason. If we have a look at this, if we were to single side join these animals with no rotation, and this happens all the time, people can argue it doesn't, but it does, then we would achieve, give or take, 48% pregnant across those 80 cows. If we had a single side join but rotated them at the start of the 2nd cycle, start of the 4th week, then we would achieve something more like 75% pregnant. Obviously, one bull achieving all of those pregnancies, first in the first mob for one cycle, then in the second mob for that second cycle. But we're clearly 25% better off. However, if we multi-side join, we're more likely to get something like 80 to 90% of these animals pregnant, providing that bull stays fit. So there are definitely bulls out there that are capable of covering 100 females in a 6-week period, but our testing is not sensitive enough to find them to make that a recommendation, but they do exist. So I get asked a lot of the time, what test should I be using on my bulls, either pre-sale or pre-joining? And there's no one size fits all here. The testing required is determined by the mating strategy that people employ. So are they going to be single sire mated? Are they going to be multi-sire mated? The history of issues that you're having, that's a big factor on determining what to do moving forward, and your appetite for risk. So some people say, no, look, I'm pretty good observer of bulls. I don't wish to go down the path of the hassle of having a serving ability test. I'm going to observe my bulls closely in the first week. So appetite for risk comes into it. And just appreciating it's a dynamic status.
Shane?
Yes.
We just had a question come through. Just going back to pre-joining, the question was, how important is it to include prostrate inspection as part of pre-joining checkup, or prostate, I think that is, inspection as part of pre-joining checkup?
Yeah, so we don't think it's that important. It's not a routine part of our checks. Obviously, what people are looking for is seminal vesiculitis, so infection or inflammation in some of those accessory sex glands. That will certainly be identified if you're doing a semen test. But there's a fair bit of data out there showing that even with seminal vesiculitis, treatment or time to recovery with or without treatment is pretty similar. So we don't see it as a big limitation on bulls' fertility.
I've just had another one come through, Shane. Also, how long should your joining program be if you undertake an AI program?
Yeah, great question. And that's something I haven't covered off today too much, but understanding in an AI program that the requirement for bulls is higher is essential. So the first answer to that is that we recommend that bulls go out after an AI a maximum of 10 days after. It depends whether they're seed stock, but let's assume they are. We want to put a gap in there so that our scanner can confidently give us differentiation between the AI animals and the backup pregnancies. And putting a 7 to 10 day gap there is fine. We shouldn't see return heats until day 16, day 17, when maternal recognition happens. Commercially, we tend to stick them out a day or two later, because by that point the semen's dead, and anything that is out of sync and cycles we want to pick up. But look, in a seed stock world, we talk 7 to 10 days after and leave them in until 45 days post AI. So got to be careful going tied on 6 weeks off AI, because depending on how many follicular waves these cows have got, some of them have got slightly longer cycles than others. So we talk 45 days from AI as the backup joining period, and that will give you 2 cycles, so AI and 2 cover cycles. You should be looking at 90 to 95% pregnant in that time frame. Heifers will be more like 80 to 85. And the benefit of that is the following year, that whole 7-week block will be eligible for the AI round up front. If you allow them an extra cycle, you will chronically end up with late calvers that are not eligible for AI. And just keep in mind that you need to have 3% bull power on those backup groups regardless. A lot of people do maths based on what they think the preg rate's going to be. I think that's really dangerous. Preg rates to AI are very hard to predict. I think if we put it in context, we'll often ask a bull to cover 60 females in a natural mating. That's our highest bull rating. But if we ask them to cover 60, we can assume that only 2/3 of them are cycling by the first cycle. So we're actually asking them to cover 40 females in a 20-day cycle. That's 2 females per day. If we ask a bull at 3% to cover after an AI, we've got 1 bull, 30 females. We assume 50% are pregnant to AI. That's 15. Need to understand those 15 empty animals are going to cycle over a 3 to 5 day period. So that means 3 to 5 per day. So the workload of a bull at 1 per 30 after an AI is in fact double that on a daily basis during that period of the workload of a bull at 1 per 60 in a natural mate. So they're important management considerations. All right. So I'll wriggle into this just a little bit before we look at some numbers quickly. Managing bulls outside of the joining. As I said, most of the bull-related injuries that are lameness are occurring in the bull paddock, not the joining paddock. So there is some differentiation there. We need that serving ability test to find the serving issues, but a lot of bull paddock issues are lameness related, easy to pick up. Important to manage bulls in their joining groups or multiples thereof, so that when we go to draft these bulls up at joining, we're not creating new management groups right on the eve of joining. Bulls coming into spring produce a lot of testosterone. They're gaining weight, feeling very confident. Fighting is at its maximum at the start of joining. So if we can be managing these bulls in their groups for the whole year, we're in a much better situation when we come to the end of the year. Now, I've got clients that house bulls in individual paddocks, and just getting the bulls to the yard is quite the ordeal. I've also got clients that run bulls in groups of 50 to 100 bulls in a mob as mature bulls, and those bulls are incredibly well managed. So everybody has their instance of what they believe in, but managing these groups in the way we want them to live and work is important. And there are fighters, so identifying and removing those fighters will help to ease people's nerves. None of us enjoy busted gates and fences and injured bulls when all we're trying to do is get them in to test them or vaccinate them or put them out, whatever. We do believe that mixing age groups will reduce dominance issues and fighting. There is not much of a fight that exists when you've got a 850 kilo mature bull and a 550 kilo yearling bull, or a 700 kilo 18-month-old bull. There is just no fight that exists. And in fact, those older bulls will slow down the work rate of the younger bulls, which reduces some of that balanitis condition we were talking about. And just really important to maintain bulls in working condition throughout the year. I can't stress that enough. One of the major factors that leads to bull breakdown is being overweight and the strain that puts on their feet and legs. And also their testosterone production and confidence levels. So a lot of these bull groups that are kept lean have a lot less bullfighting than other groups. So ways to do that, obviously stocking density, keep paddocks short, using electricity outriggers on fences to try and protect the fence and contain the bulls, co-grazing with other animals such as rams or sheep, take out some of the quality feed, deliberately using lower quality pastures or hillier paddocks, or potentially just rotating out and crash grazing paddocks. So a lot of people have a bull paddock, but you don't necessarily want to let that paddock accumulate a heap of year and allow the bull's body condition to be a reflection of the season. I think that is poor exercising of our management skill. We should be doing things to control their intake, and that might involve removing them for a period and crash grazing a paddock. So mature bulls, what problems do we see? Obviously overweight. Can't harp on that enough. It's the number one thing. This leads to structural issues. So a lot of stifle issues, particularly in heavy and working bulls. We've got hocks and hips, feet issues. Is the weight or the structural conformity of the foot related to an increased risk of foot infections? We believe it to be. Serving issues. So most of these are preputial and penile injuries. The corkscrew penis we're talking about, erectile dysfunctions, nerve sensation issues, back and hind leg pain. So a lot of those things will occur, and they're the things we really need that serving test to pick up. And then testicular problems, you can get infections, epididymitis or orchitis, really relatively common, or testicular degeneration. It is an organ and it can die. So some bulls will have degeneration of the testes. This is just me picking a fight. So these mature bulls are meant to be athletes, not show animals. And it's important once we select these bulls to manage them that way, or accept that we are taking on a high risk of breakdown. So the only time we should have trouble getting a bull up the race is when he's going to market. And people too often find it quite humorous that their bulls can't get up the race, but I think it's evidence that we haven't managed them quite right. So a little bit on cost. I've just got a table here to demonstrate the impact of the length of a bull's working life. So if we look across the top, I've got the cost of the bull set at $10,000 for the bull, which is pretty moderate in reality. We've got the number of working seasons from 1 through to 5. Then everything else is the same. So number of calves per year, we're working on them siring 40 calves a year. We've got the interest value on the purchase price. The reason that varies is obviously how many years that we've got the bull, or how many seasons we've got the bull. We've got the cull price set at $3,000. And so what we can see is that a $10,000 bull that sires 40 calves and survives for 1 season, which is not that uncommon, is costing us around $200 per pregnancy. Now, we can AI for $100 to $125 per pregnancy using some of the most expensive semen we can get our hands on. Or semen for some of the highest indexing bulls we can get our hands on for $120. So they're really expensive calves, versus if we go to the other end, we've got a bull that's working for 5 seasons, giving us calves that are only worth $60. So there's a big impact on the profitability or the cost structure of these calves based on the longevity of the bulls. And so, again, I reiterate that it's seed stock producers like yourselves that have the opportunity to drive how long these bulls survive. Now, to put it into context, so obviously the longevity, we're identifying that the difference between a 1st and 5th season breakdown time frame is $140 per calf advantage, potentially. If we have a look at the Simmental indexes, roughly the difference between a bottom 5% indexing bull and a top 5% indexing bull is about $25 per calf. So it's not saying that the genetic value is not important. We need to be capturing that, but just understanding that we can put all this emphasis on driving genetic gain, but without understanding how we manage these bulls, there's quite a big difference here in the cost per calf, which is obviously more relevant to a commercial producer. But I think that we need to understand that the breeding decisions we make in the seed stock herd are completely controlling what breeding decisions are being made in the commercial breeders herd. So important there. So I need to capture both of these benefits if we can. We need better genetic bulls managed in a way to have longer working lives. Pretty sensible.
Shane,
So,
just quickly,
yes.
We just had another question come through, just going back to bull frame size. The question is, what is the ideal frame size for a bull to cover cows without placing stress on their back?
Yeah, so frame score is probably a little independent to body weight or body condition. Now, obviously, the bigger the frame score, the bigger the weight, but the bigger the frame score, the more capable they are of handling the weight. So we're probably talking about body condition score as a better measure. And obviously we get a little bit concerned when bulls get terribly large as far as the female's ability to handle them. So look, in answer to your question, we like to keep those bulls in a 2.5 to 3.5 body condition score in the off season. We accept and support the fact that they will gain weight in the lead up to the joining period, and some of these bulls will get to 4 score early on in the joining period. But at this time, they're also working hard, so they tend to actually lose a little bit of weight. It's normally the back end of joining where the workload is reducing that they put most of their weight on. So I didn't exactly answer that question, but it's body condition more so than frame score. Size, often there's a question about how big do bulls need to be able to cover females. That is a tough one to answer. A lot of our seed stock herds now are utilising nothing but yearling bulls and getting very, very good outcomes out of it. So if females are on heat, they're pretty easy to serve, and we have a minimum weight in our Angus bulls, which a lot of the breeds represented in the audience today will far exceed this. We work on a 500 kilo minimum for yearling bulls, and that covers all age groups of cows. And as a lot of you are aware, the average Angus cow now is not all that small. So bull frame size is often not a limiting factor, and bull weight is best measured by body condition score.
Thank you.
No worries. So obviously we're almost done here. A few take-home messages I thought that were important. Important to appreciate that the purpose of the bull is to create calves and drive genetic gain, but really it's chicken then egg. Without creating the calves, we don't achieve any genetic gain. So managing these two things together, really important. The bull testing required within the herd is determined by the mating strategy employed, the appetite for risk, and the history of issues on that property. Understanding, or at least appreciating, that high performance systems puts more pressure on bulls, and that this is a positive. I mean, high performance systems, i.e. high fertility systems, are big drivers of profit. And so they're things we need to aim for, but just appreciating that is putting more pressure on our bulls is important, and using some of these risk mitigation strategies we've touched on to help protect those bulls from breakdown, I think is important, because we need to have high fertility outcomes. Understanding the bull fertility is not black and white, and that a bull tested sound today, could be injured tomorrow. And so it's important not to get frustrated, but to take it as an opportunity to educate. And that can be really hard, because typically the commercial producer's frustrated. They've got a high value bull. This bull's now broken. The seed stock producer's frustrated because what more could they do other than breed the bull, test the bull pre-sale, and then sell it. But in my experience, this is a really important interface for people to manage, because that's how you get some of these clients to be clients for life. It's an important interface, and it's a big opportunity to educate them to reduce that risk in the future. But it's important. I mean, as vets, we are trying to push that people understand it's their responsibility. But just remember that the average commercial producer sees yourselves as seed stock producers as a more important source of information than they do us. And so being on the same page and sharing information is really important. Manage your bulls with a year-round approach in mind. So having that body condition score between 2.5 and 3.5 for as much as the year as possible is essential. And having these bulls live and work in groups that represents, some stable hierarchy will really help it when it comes to your desire to multi-side join. Some people say it's too hard and have all the reasons why they can't. I'd invite them to come and see some of these properties where we have some very large contemporary groups of bulls that coexist well. Multi-side join to get females pregnant and reduce negative client calls. I can't make it much simpler than that. I can appreciate that this is a negative in a lot of the seed stock herds, but understanding the value of rotating those bulls, or at least close observation, is important. But education of your clients, there is very little valid reason to single side join in a commercial herd. And finally, appreciate that the overall objective is to achieve first cycle conception rates of 70% with a calving span that doesn't exceed 6 weeks. That's the finish line. That's what we're aiming for. And so our bulls need to promote genetic gain, but achieve that for us. And if they can do that, then that holds us in good stead. So that is it from me.
Thanks, Shane.
No worries.
I haven't had any questions come through, but does anyone have any questions for Shane before we wrap up?
There's one question I've spotted here, if I can jump in. The importance of purchasing multiple bulls that have been running together. I think it's an interesting point, and I suppose I've suggested that. I think that your genetic decisions when you're purchasing bulls are too important to allow you to prioritize purchasing of lot numbers that are close together or anything like that. I think it's more so the importance of housing these bulls together. I mean, we've often got a fair amount of time to get them to stabilize their hierarchy in a group. And so I would buy the bulls you need to buy from a genetic point of view. But but just house them in a way that we can get them coexisting and multi-side join from there. And young bulls are a lot easier to combine than older bulls.
If it's easier, you can turn off your unmute yourself, and you can voice your question if that's easier. Anyone has any questions?
There's one other question from Andrew. Really good question, Andrew. In a multi-side joining scenario, 6-week joining scenario, where there are at least 4 bulls in each group of cows that appeared to be mostly working well in the first 3 weeks, but a few have broken down since, is it necessary to remove the injured bulls now, or can we simply get them out at the end of joining and deal with their problems then? Look, really good question. You can burn a lot of time trying to move individual bulls around, but I do think it's important. I mean, there's probably 2 perspectives here. One is if we can get those bulls in and treat them early, whether that's lameness or penile injuries, we can dramatically improve the prognosis. But the other part to that answer is you've probably got to make a little bit of an assessment of dominance. And I multi-side joining has seldom let me down, but I did have an example the other day where we tested the bulls. We identified a bull that had a sensory deficit and could not serve females, but he was the most dominant bull in the group. Now we AI'd these females, and when we got to preg test, I was preg testing away, and all I had was AI pregnancy or empties, the odd backup pregnancy. I thought, this isn't right. I mean, they were animals that were they had a serving ability test and a semen test. We'd fresh semen AI'd them to those same bulls. Anyway, it came out in the history that the bull who we'd culled had jumped a couple of fences and got in with the joining mob because they hadn't sold him by joining. And this bull, when they brought them back in for us to have a look at it, he was capable of preventing 3 other bulls from getting on. I mean, females will come together to form sexually active groups, and this bull was successful at preventing the other bulls, not all of them, a couple of them young, but a couple of them experienced, was successful at preventing them from serving females by mustering the females together and just completely dominating the other bulls out of the show. So that was the first time I'd seen it on such an extreme level. But my comment there is that if we have a bull that's not working well and they are dominant within the bull team, I'm confident that they can have a negative impact on the outcome. So I'm a fan of only having bulls that are fit and capable of doing what they need to do in the joining mob. Any other questions? I'm happy for people to fire off on verbal. I'll zip my mouth so they have a chance. We might be right. We might be right.
It looks like it.
If anyone has anything, it's a great opportunity if you do have any questions. Oh, I've just had one come through. Okay. Similar to the bull weight scenario we had before of the question is, what is the ideal weight for a bull? And there's an option there, 800 kilos or 1,000 kilos. So that's all. That's the information we got.
Yeah, I look again. I think it's hard without referencing that frame score, and that's where body conditions scoring really helps. And not everybody's comfortable at body condition scoring, particularly not in some of these European or better muscle bulls, they can be hard to body condition score. But look, there are not many 1,000 kilo bulls that I'm comfortable with from a fitness point of view. If they're 1,000 kilos, they're very heavy. Now, some of your Simmentals and Limos, they're pretty big bulls. So, you know, I can't say that every bull should be 800 kilos, but keeping them in moderate body condition and just understanding that they're hard on themselves and hard on the females at those bigger weights is pretty important. So, yeah, I mustn't have picked enough of a fight with some of the showing members on their way to their older bulls. But,
well, I don't have any more questions unless you've got some, Zoe.
No, nothing here. I think, yeah, that might be it for the moment.
No worries. No, and if anybody's got any questions, only too happy for you to forward them on, Zoe and Hannah.
Sure.
That'd be fine. I've got a bit of a handout there. There was mention of resources. I think that there's not actually a lot of resources on this stuff. All of the DPI sites, like the New South Wales DPI and Vic and WA, they've got good resources. I was looking at something on Future Beef today. A lot of your vets will have resources. I mean, one thing we have is a bit of a risk assessment that we do with clients. So when they get a joining failure come through, we like to have a bit of a questionnaire that our seed stock producers can send out to our commercial producers to fill out. And part of that is risk profiling their herd. And we've designed this little risk profiler that will just describe how you use your bulls. And we find that it's very educational at demonstrating to people that some of those decisions, such as single side joining or weight management of the bulls, does actually increase the risk. But I mean, we've covered off on all of that. But yeah, Future Beef had a good bit of a summary on the bull management. There's a bit of a resource if people are interested.
No, dear. Well, thanks so much, Shane, for coming on and having a chat with us tonight. It's been really good.
No, my pleasure. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah, I don't think there's any more questions my end, but yeah, thanks so much, Shane. It's fantastic insight. I'm sure you've helped a lot of people here tonight. And yeah, if anyone does have any questions, please get in touch with Genetic Hub and we can certainly pass those on to Shane. But yeah, no, that was fantastic. A lot of very useful information in there for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah. No worries. All right. Well, everyone have a good evening. And we'll catch you down the track.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Shane.
No worries. See you.
See you.
Bye.